I need to document this. Right now, my hands are actually shaking a little bit as I type this out. Not from fear anymore, but from the adrenaline of watching a 30-year-old power dynamic crumble in real time. My phone is currently sitting on the other side of the room, face down, because if I see it light up with my mother's name one more time, I might actually throw it through the window. To understand why I'm currently the villain in my parents' twisted little narrative, you have to understand my father, Frank. Frank is a man made of concrete dust, callous, and absolute certainty. He runs a general contracting business. He builds houses. He pours foundations. In Frank's world, if you don't come home with dirt under your fingernails and a backache, you didn't work. Period. My older brother, Caleb, is Frank 2.0. He dropped out of community college after one semester to join Dad's crew. He drives a lifted truck, talks about real labor, and looks at anyone wearing a tie like they're stealing oxygen. And then there's me, Julian, the mistake, the glitch in the matrix. I didn't want to pour concrete. I wanted to design the buildings. Actually, I want to go further than that. I fell in love with digital animation and concept art. I wanted to build worlds that didn't exist yet. When I got accepted into a prestigious design institute in San Francisco, Frank didn't congratulate me. He asked how much the tuition was, and then asked if I was planning to draw a cartoon for the rest of my life. My mother, Brenda, played the role of the peacekeeper. Or so I thought. She's the type of woman who whispers, "Just don't upset your father," as if Frank's temper was a weather pattern we had survived rather than a choice he was making. She'd sigh and say, "Julian, you know how hard he works for his money. It hurts him to see it go to something frivolous." Frivolous. That was the word. Fast forward 4 years. I graduated last month, top of my class. I didn't just draw cartoons. I spent thousands of hours rendering, modeling, and building a portfolio that I hope would land me a junior spot at a major studio. I had my entire senior thesis, a fully rendered 3D short film, and my entire concept art library stored on my high-end tablet and a backup external drive. This was my ticket. This was my career. I was crashing at my parents' place for a few weeks before moving out, trying to save money while I sent out applications. I thought I could handle it. I thought, hey, I'm an adult now. They'll respect that. I was an idiot. The catalyst was a Memorial Day pig roast. This is a huge tradition in my family. Frank invites the entire crew, the neighbors, the church group. Easily 40 or 50 people packed into our backyard. I showed up late because I had been finalizing a freelance commission. When I walked into the backyard, the air was thick with smoke and the smell of roasting meat. And, more concerningly, the smell of cheap beer. Frank had been drinking since noon. I could tell by the way he was standing, feet wide apart, swaying slightly, looking for a fight. I had my gear bag with me, my laptop, my tablet, my drives, because I was planning to head to a coffee shop afterward to work. I set the bag down on the patio table, grabbed a soda, and tried to blend into the scenery. It didn't work. Frank saw me. He killed the music. He actually walked over to the stereo, yanked the cord, and whistled for attention. "Everyone, listen up," he bellowed. The crowd went quiet. "I want to make a toast. To my son, Caleb." He slapped Caleb on the back so hard the kid stumbled. Caleb here just closed his first solo framing job, brought in $5,000 profit. That's a man. That's someone who knows the value of a dollar and the value of sweat. Everyone clapped. I clapped. Caleb beamed like he'd just won a Nobel Prize. Then Frank turned his eyes on me. They were glassy and mean. "And then there's Julian," he said, his voice dropping to a mock whisper. "Julian, show everyone what you've been doing for 4 years while I paid for it." My stomach dropped. "Dad, don't," I said quietly. "No, show them." Frank shouted. He walked over the patio table and grabbed my bag. He appended it, my laptop, my heavy-duty drawing tablet, and my hard drives clattered onto the concrete pavers. "He draws," Frank announced to the crowd, gesturing at the expensive tech like it was garbage. "I break my back for 30 years, and my son plays on a computer. He makes little fairy tales. He's 22 years old, and he plays with toys." The neighbors were shifting uncomfortably. Mrs. Gable, the sweet lady from next door, looked like she wanted to disappear. But nobody stopped him. Nobody ever stops Frank. "Dad, that's my work," I said, stepping forward. "Put it down." "Work." Frank laughed. It was a cruel, barking sound. "You think this is work? You think sitting in air conditioning clicking a mouse is work? I'll show you work." He reached into his toolbox, which was sitting by the grill for some reason, and pulled out a framing hammer. I froze. "Dad, stop." "You need to wake up Julian," he screamed, his face turning purple. "You need to stop living in a fantasy world and get a real job. I'm doing you a favor." He swung the hammer. The sound of a hammer hitting a retina display screen is something I will never forget. It was a sick crunch. He hit the tablet first. Glass sprayed across the patio. Then he hit the laptop. Once. Twice. The aluminum casing bent like cardboard. "Frank." My mom finally yelled, but she didn't move. She just stood there with her hand over her mouth. "Caleb?" Caleb was laughing. He was leaning against the fence, nursing a beer, shaking his head like, asterisk, "Finally, the kid learns a lesson." Asterisk. Frank wasn't done. He saw the external hard drive, the backup. He stomped on it with his heavy work boot, grinding his heel into it until the plastic casing cracked open. For years, my thesis, my portfolio, the commission I was due to deliver the next day, all of it, smashed into unrecognizable debris on the patio stones, while 40 people watched in silence. Frank stood there, chest heaving, looking at the destruction with satisfaction. "Now," he said, panting, "now, maybe you can pick up a shovel and be a man." I stared at the pieces of my life. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I think I went into shock. I looked up at Frank, then at Brenda, who was avoiding my eyes, then at Caleb, who was still smirking. "Okay," I said. I turned around, walked through the house, grabbed my car keys, and walked out the front door. I didn't pack clothes. I didn't say goodbye. I got in my car and drove. I drove 3 hours to a friend's place in the city. I spent the first 2 days lying on his couch, staring at the ceiling, trying to process the fact that my father had just committed a felony against me in front of the entire neighborhood. But by day 3, the shock wore off, and a cold, hard rage took its place. Frank relies on 2 things to maintain his power: intimidation and reputation. He thinks he's the king of the castle, the pillar of the community. He thinks what happens in the family stays in the family. He thought I would come crawling back in a week, begging for a job on his crew, admitting he was right. First came the text from Mom. Asterisk Brenda. "Julian, please come home. Your father is sorry he lost his temper, but you provoked him. We can fix the computer. Just come home, and we can talk about your future." Asterisk. Provoked him? Fix it? He put a hammer through a solid-state drive. You don't fix that. Then came Caleb. Asterisk Caleb. Quit being a drama queen. You embarrassed Dad in front of the crew. Come back and apologize, and maybe he'll let you work off the cost of the laptop on the site. Asterisk. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my email. My family has a massive, extended network. We're talking aunts, uncles, second cousins, people in 3 different states. My grandmother, Rose, Frank's mother, is the matriarch. She's 80 years old, wealthy, sharp as a tack, and the only person Frank is actually afraid of. She also paid for half my tuition because she believed in supporting the arts. I drafted an email. I kept it clinical. No emotional outbursts, just the facts. Subject: update on my graduation and current situation. Asterisk: I know many of you have been asking to see my senior thesis and the portfolio I've been working on for the last 4 years. I was excited to share it with you. Asterisk. Asterisk, unfortunately, I cannot share any of it. On Monday, during the Memorial Day barbecue, Dad decided that my career path was invalid. In front of the guests, he took a hammer to my workstation, destroying my laptop, my drawing tablet, and my backup drives. My thesis film and 4 years of professional assets are irretrievable. Asterisk. Asterisk because of this. I am currently staying with friends while I try to salvage my career. I won't be attending the family reunion next month, as I don't feel safe being around Frank right now. I just want to let you know the truth before rumors started spreading. Asterisk. Love, Julian. I hit send. Grandma Rose was the first to call. I let it go to voicemail because I wasn't ready to talk, but her message was 3 minutes of cold, focused fury. She wasn't mad at me. She was asking for details. Within 24 hours, the flying monkeys started. For those who don't know, flying monkeys are the people a narcissist sends to do their bidding. My Aunt Linda, Mom's sister, called me. Julian, honey, surely you're exaggerating? Frank has a temper, but he wouldn't destroy your schoolwork. Ask the neighbors, Aunt Linda. I said calmly. Ask Mrs. Gable. She was standing 5 feet away. That was the key. I had witnesses. By the end of the first week, the narrative had shifted. Frank wasn't the tough love patriarch anymore. He was the unhinged lunatic who destroyed his son's future in a drunken rage. I started getting updates from my cousin Sarah, who is a family gossip, bless her heart. She told me that Grandma Rose had called Frank and screamed at him for an hour. Apparently, she threatened to cut him out of the will if he didn't pay me back every cent of the tuition money he'd wasted by destroying the result. Frank's response? He doubled down. He told everyone I was lying, that I'd smashed the computer myself to get sympathy, that I was mentally unstable. But here's where Frank messed up. He works in a small town. He relies on word of mouth. I went to the local community Facebook page. I didn't post a rant. I simply posted a looking for work ad. Asterisk graphic designer / illustrator seeking immediate freelance work. My equipment was recently destroyed in a domestic incident, so I am working from a library computer, but I am eager to rebuild my portfolio. Thank you. Asterisk. I didn't name Frank. I didn't have to. The comments section did it for me. Asterisk. Oh my God, is this Frank's son? I was at the barbecue. It was awful what he did. Asterisk. Asterisk. I saw the whole thing. He used a hammer. Stay strong, kid. Asterisk. The screenshot of that thread went viral locally. People started canceling contracts with Frank. A local bakery he was supposed to renovate pulled the plug, citing scheduling conflicts. But we all knew why. You don't hire the guy who smashes things with hammers when he gets mad. Month 2. Silence from me. Panic from them. My phone was filled with voicemails. Frank, asterisk, you ungrateful little brat. You're ruining my reputation. You tell them it was a misunderstanding. You take that post down. Asterisk, Brenda. Asterisk, Julian. Your father is losing bids. We might not be able to afford the truck payments. How can you do this to us? We're family. Asterisk. I finally answered one of Mom's calls. I didn't do anything to you, Mom, I said. I told the truth. If the truth destroys his reputation, that's a problem with his reputation, not my storytelling. He's your father, she sobbed. He was trying to make you a man. He made me homeless and jobless in 10 minutes, Mom. And you watched. You're not the victim here. I hung up. I found out later from Sarah that the church group had asked Frank to step down from the deacon board. Apparently, violent outbursts and gluttony / drunkenness didn't align with their values. That hit Frank harder than the money, the loss of status, the loss of looking like the big man. But I wasn't just sitting around. What Frank didn't know was that cloud storage exists. He smashed the drives. He smashed the laptop. But my thesis film, the final render files, I had uploaded them to a secure server for my professor to review 2 days before the barbecue. I hadn't lost everything. I had lost the hardware. Yes. I had lost my sketches. Yes. But the masterpiece? It was safe. I spent those 2 months grinding. I used the library. I borrowed my friend's rig at night. I rebuilt my reel. And I started applying to jobs on the other side of the country. The climax happened last weekend. It was Grandma Rose and Grandpa Joe's 50th wedding anniversary. This was the event of the decade. A formal gala at a hotel ballroom. The entire family was flying in. I received an invitation directly from Grandma Rose. Included in the envelope was a check for $5,000 and a note. Asterisk, buy a new suit. Buy a new computer. See you there. Asterisk, I heard through the grapevine that Frank and Brenda were not invited. Well, technically they were invited to the ceremony, but not the reception. It was the ultimate grandmotherly shade. She was saying, "You are my son, so you can watch, but you're not getting fed, and you are not celebrating with us." I showed up looking sharp. I had my new portfolio on iPad Pro. I felt good. The reception was beautiful. I was sitting at the head table with the cousins. People were coming up to me, hugging me, apologizing for what happened. It felt like vindication. And then, around 8 p.m., the double doors swung open. Frank and Brenda walked in. They weren't dressed for a gala. Frank was in his good flannel and clean jeans. Brenda was in a Sunday church dress. They looked out of place, desperate and angry. The music didn't stop, but the conversation did. A ripple of silence spread across the room as they marched toward the head table. Grandma Rose stood up. She's 5'0", but she looked 10 feet tall. "Frank," she said, her voice cutting through the room. "I believe the invitation said the reception was for guests with RSVP cards only." "Mom, stop it," Frank said, his voice loud. He looked at me. He pointed a finger that shook with rage. "It was a toy." Frank roared. "And look at you, wearing a fancy suit, drinking champagne. You think you're better than us? You think you're better than the people who work for a living?" "I work for a living, Frank," I said calmly. "I actually just accepted an offer." That stopped him. "What?" "I'm moving to Seattle next week," I announced, loud enough for the room to hear. "I've been hired as a junior character artist for a major gaming studio. My starting salary is—" I paused for effect. "Well, let's just say it's more than you made in your best year of contracting." The room gasped. It was petty. I admit it. But God, it felt good. Frank's face went white, then red. "You're lying." "I'm not. And you know the best part? They hired me because of the thesis film. The one you tried to smash. But you're too old to understand the cloud, aren't you, Dad?" Caleb, who had trailed in behind them, looked at me with his mouth open. He looked at his dad, waiting for the comeback, waiting for the alpha move. But Frank had nothing. He looked around the room. He saw his brothers looking at him with pity. He saw his mother looking at him with disappointment. He saw the neighbors and cousins shaking their heads. He realized, finally, that he had no power here. His hammer didn't work in this room. "You're no son of mine," Frank spat. "I know," I said. "I'm an artist." Grandma Rose signaled security. "Frank, Brenda, Caleb, please leave. You are making a scene on my anniversary." Brenda started to cry. "Rose, please, he's your son." "And Julian is my grandson," Rose said. "And you stood by and watched him be attacked. Go home." Security escorted them out. I watched them go. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel guilty. I felt lighter than I had in 20 years. That was 3 days ago. I'm currently packing my car for Seattle. The fallout continues. Frank is currently trying to sue me for defamation because of the lost income from the bad reviews. My lawyer, Grandma Rose's lawyer actually, says he has zero case because truth is an absolute defense against defamation. Caleb sent me a text yesterday. Asterisk Caleb. "You think you're so special. Dad is wrecked because of you." Asterisk. Asterisk me. "Dad is a wreck because he's a bully who finally picked a fight he couldn't win with a hammer. Good luck with the business, Caleb." Asterisk. I blocked him. Mom came by this morning. She knocked on the door of the Airbnb I'm staying in. She wasn't crying this time. She looked tired. "Are you really leaving?" she asked. "Yes." "Will you ever come back?" "I don't know, Mom. Probably not while he's alive." She nodded. She looked at her hands. "I should have stopped him," she whispered. "I knew he was drunk. I knew he was jealous." "Jealous? You were going away to do something big," she said. "Frank has never left this town. He saw you getting out and he hated it. He wanted to break you, so you'd stay." "Well," I said, clothes in my suitcase. It had the opposite effect. She hugged me. It was a weak hug. "Take care of yourself, Julian." "I will. I'm in Seattle. It rains a lot here, but I love it. The studio is incredible. I'm surrounded by people who speak my language, people who value creation over destruction. Grandma Rose calls me every Sunday. She tells me the gossip. Apparently, Frank has had to downsize the business. He sold the big truck. He's taking smaller jobs now, mostly repairs. The town hasn't forgotten. And my artwork, the thesis film, I'm submitting it to festivals next month. The title of the film is The Builder. It's about a giant made of stone who tries to build a wall to keep the world out, only to realize he's walled himself in. Irony is a beautiful thing. So, to anyone out there dealing with a parent who measures your worth by how much you suffer, don't let them break your tools. And if they do, make sure the whole world hears the sound of glass shattering. Because the best revenge isn't burning their house down. It's building a better one far, far away, and never inviting them inside.